Worded questions. Any worded question? What do you think we need to do first? Any worded question, particularly with triangles? Before we even do that, draw it out. Okay, and before we even do that, what do we do? Even before that, any worded question for any topic. Highlight and read, okay? So if we think about our worded questions, could I get you to stop talking now, please? If we think about our worded questions, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to read and highlight the question. Okay? Read and highlight the question. Now, you might have worded questions for right angle triangles. You might also have worded questions for non-right angle triangles. So sometimes you might not actually know if it's a right angle triangle question or a non-right angle triangle question until you've read the question and tried to draw it out, and then you've gone, oh, there's a right angle there. Oh, there's not a right angle there. Okay? So you can't just assume that worded questions are all going to be right angle questions once we've learnt both. But for now, you can, because we're only learning about right angle triangles this week. Okay, so first question is read and highlight. But not question, first step. Okay, second step we said was draw it out. Then it becomes an easy question. It's not a worded question anymore. It's just the same as everything else we've done. I'm not going to put in all the steps of Sokotora. I'm just going to say solve, oh, that's 2 again, 3. Solve using your trig skills, which you have so many of. Okay? So they're all the steps we've done in the last 2 lessons, just so I don't have to write out 5 steps each time. Okay? And 4, check that your answer fits the question. So that's how you go back. You actually go back to the words then. So you start with the words, you highlight from the words, you make a picture, you answer from the picture. And then from that answer, you just go and check back that it actually suits the story of the question, actually answers the story of the question. Does that make sense? Yes? All right. There are a few little words we need to know about when we're looking at trig questions. So this is a bit like a little glossary of words we need to use. And we're really only looking at 2 words today. On tomorrow, we will be doing like bearings. So that's the only other word we need to know about. So it's about those degrees. But for now, we're really only looking at an angle of elevation and an angle of depression. They're the words you need to know for some worded questions, okay? So angle of elevation and angle of depression. So the angle of elevation is the angle upwards from a horizontal line. If it's an angle of elevation from a person, it is often from their eye line. So sometimes you'll actually have to add how much distance there is from the ground to their eyes, because they're actually talking about the horizontal from their eyes. So what I mean by that is if we had a person, remember that I'm not an art student, and we have their eyes there, okay? If you had a horizontal line from there, the angle of elevation was, say, 30 degrees. This would be a 30-degree angle of elevation. So from the horizontal upwards is an angle of elevation. You okay with that? Now, the one which people have trouble with is an angle of depression. What do you think that means? downwards from a horizontal. Okay, and this is where a lot of people decide it's actually from the ground upwards or something like that. It's from a horizontal downwards. So angle of depression is the angle downwards from a horizontal line. Okay, so for example, we might have, I'm really not going to be able to draw an aeroplane, but we might have an aeroplane. Let's just use a dot for an aeroplane. Okay, we'll have an aeroplane at which spots a person at an angle of depression of 50 degrees. Now, what ends up happening a lot of the time, can you not draw this? Can everyone just put their eyes up for a second though? Is that what people do is because they want to make a triangle, and we're going to end up making a triangle like this, is that they go, this here is 50 degrees. Why is that incorrect? It's not from the horizontal. It's a line, don't write this down, please, okay? It's an angle from where the aeroplane is, but it's not an angle of depression. So what you actually have to be looking at is, instead of doing the triangle like that, or you've actually got two options. Instead of doing the triangle like downwards, straight up and down, it's still going to be the same, because it's a right angle, is that we do a horizontal line and a right angle, and so therefore the angle of depression is there because it's from the horizontal down. Can everybody see that? Now, if you did want to do, now you don't need to write this bit, but if you did want to do this triangle instead, so if the question actually was asking you for the height above ground of the aeroplane, that's fine. You could just say that's what it is there. However, some people really want to do the triangle which is on the right-hand side there. They really want this one because they want to be able to see straight up and down, okay? Now, if I know that this here is 50 degrees, because that's the angle of depression, what could I use instead in my different triangle? I could use 40 here and have X, and this would still give us the same answer, because what's in the opposite corner? 50. So if you see 50 is still opposite the X, and so you could still find your answer in the same way. So you just need to be aware, if it's got an angle of depression, if you do the triangle in the other way, it's actually, they're called alternate angles because they're parallel lines. That angle is always going to be in the bottom corner. However, I feel like this, the one on the left, is the best way to do it because you're less likely to get confused. Okay, so think about it in terms of an angle of depression is always from a horizontal downwards. You can still put a distance up and down on the other side of the triangle. Okay, can you write that down, please? Okay, so the depression questions where most people make a mistake and they just put the wrong angle in the triangle. So just be really aware of drawing out the horizontal. Depression means down from there. Elevation means up from there. And that's it. The only other tricky part is with the eyesight one, is that they might have a question which says from this eyesight, looking up, and then they'll say something like, how looking up you can see the top of the tree. And you work out what the tree height is, and it's from the person's height to the top of the tree, what have you also got to remember to add in for the tree height? The actual person's height, because it's from their eyesight there. So we've got to add from their eyes down to get the tree. So just being aware of those little things. However, those little things are worth like 1 mark in the scheme of things. If you can find the height of the tree without that, you're going to get the majority of marks. Any questions? All right, what we might do is we're going to start with some of your homework questions so then we can keep moving through. So we'll use an example from your homework questions, which we're still continuing on with exercise 10A. So how do we draw a ladder? Can you guys remember how to draw a ladder? So a diagram shows a ladder leaning against a vertical wall and making an angle of 62 degrees with the horizontal ground. So we're just going to write, I won't get you to write too many worded questions, we'll just do one and then one other one with an angle of elevation or something like that. Okay, so a ladder leans against a vertical wall making an angle of 62 degrees with the horizontal ground. Notice the words vertical and horizontal. That means we're going to end up making a 90-degree angle. If the ladder is 8 meters long, determine. Okay, we're going to do 2 parts. A, how high the ladder reaches up the wall. We'll start with this one. Does anyone need help with reading that question? It is question 32 from your book as well. So a ladder leans against a vertical wall, making an angle of 62 degrees with the horizontal ground. If the ladder is 8 meters long, determine how high the ladder reaches up the wall. All right, so first quick thing, what do we do? Read and highlight, okay? So a ladder leans against a vertical wall, making an angle of 62 degrees with the horizontal ground. Now you need to know where the angle actually needs to be, because if you put the angle in the wrong part of the triangle, you're going to make a mistake. So the with the ground means the ladder is making an angle with the ground, so we need to be able to remember that part. The ladder is 8 meters long. They're probably the 2 main parts. So if I draw a triangle, I'm going to draw a wall, I'm going to draw the ground, and I'm going to draw a ladder. Remember, it is not this, okay? It is a straight ladder which leans against a wall, which makes a right angle. Okay, 62 degrees. If the ladder makes an angle of 62 degrees with the ground, we're going ladder and ground. So where's the angle? Bottom corner. Okay, so think about the 2 things they talked about. What did it make an angle with? And then we go between them. So this is 62 degrees. The ladder is 8 meters long. Which line are we talking about? The hypotenuse. And our question says how high the ladder reaches up the wall. So which side are we looking for? The wall, X. Everyone okay with that? Now that we've got a picture, this is just a right angle triangle. We can just use SOHCAHTOA to find it. So is it a right angle triangle? Yes. What are we going to label the X as? Opposite, and the 8 as? Hypotenuse. So within SOHCAHTOA, which ratio are we going to use? Sine, you get in the habit of saying sine, please. Sine 62 equals opposite over hypotenuse equals x over 8. Now, if the pronumeral is on the top, you just move the bottom. So we go 8 sine 62 equals x. So we leave x where it is, we move the bottom. And we can put that into our calculator. So then, 7.06 meters. Now, does that seem right? Why? Because it's smaller than the hypotenuse, okay? So we can go, yeah, that seems about right. I can be pretty confident in my answer there. All right, then B says, and there's actually two ways of finding this. B says, B says the horizontal distance from the base of the wall to the foot of the ladder. What are we looking for here? The bottom length. That's it. Okay, so let's make that y. Now, there are two ways of answering this. I think there's a more accurate way than others. We now know that that side there is 7.06. So if we wanted to, what rule could we use if we didn't want to use the degrees? We could use Pythagoras. However, if you were going to use Pythagoras, I would want you to use every single decimal place in that 7.06, whatever we worked out. Okay, so I want you to be going 8 squared. The square root of 8 squared takes 7.06, whatever the numbers were squared. So I think an easier way of doing it would actually be to just keep using trig. And don't use the 7.06 if you don't need to, because you don't. You know this answer and this answer and this one. So we know enough to be able to not have to use it. But if you do use it, I want you to copy in your calculator and paste in all the decimal places until you get to your final answer. That's when you round. All right, so is it a right angle triangle? Yes. What would the y be labelled as? A, and so 8's still H. And so what rule are we going to use? Cosine. So SOH katoa, we're going to use cosine. Cosine 62 equals y over 8. And we do the same thing because the 8's on the bottom. 8 cosine 62 equals y. And we can find out our answer. Which someone's going to put in their calculator for me. Say it again. 3.76. All right, now, does that seem correct? So if we've got 8 and we've got 7.06 and we've got 3.76, does that seem right? Why? Good, because it's opposite the smallest angle, so it's going to be the smallest side in the middle, and then the hypotenuse is the biggest one. So you can be able to look at that and feel pretty confident in your answer. You guys okay with that? Yeah? All right, one last question. It's not going to be from homework. I'm just going to make it up. Right? So, Kippy is sitting in a tree. 2 meters above the ground. Oh, be aware, as soon as I get into these sort of questions, everybody's names get used, okay? So just, it's fine, okay? Kimmy's sitting in a tree 2 meters above the ground, all right? He spots Chelsea at an angle of depression of 18 degrees. How far away from the tree is Chelsea? All right, you do not have to draw pictures. Okay, even stick figures, don't even need to draw them. Dots, triangles, okay? So, what is the important information when we read this question? 2 meters above the ground. What else? Depression of 18 degrees. And how far away? Or something that would be the question, okay? So, if we look at this, we draw a dot. Okay, this is where Kippy is in the tree. Do I then say that this angle here is 18? But I've said he's in the tree and it's 18. Good, it's not from a horizontal. As soon as you see angle of depression, you need to go, okay, it is 18 degrees from a horizontal. So our triangle goes this way. So this is 18 degrees. If you wanted it to go the other way, because I know people are more comfortable with the tree height being where the tree is, okay, that's okay. You can do this and go 18 degrees, but you need to then realize that this angle here is 72, which makes this angle the 18 degrees. Okay, however, I'm going to use the one on the left. We've got this. Chelsea's down here. What are we trying to find? The distance from the tree. So that is the horizontal distance. So it's this distance here. Or if you wanted to, you could write it here. You will still get the same working out whichever way you draw it. But you've got to be aware of where that angle of 18 is. It just says or, just like you can do either way. All right, so have I got a right angle? Yes. What is the, oh, do we know? I've missed a bit of information. What have I missed? 2 meters. I forgot to read the highlighted bit. Okay, so 2 meters is here, or 2 meters is here. Okay, so what are we going to label the 2 meters as? Opposite, and the x as adjacent. So SOHCAHTOA, which ratio? Tan. So I've got tan 18 equals 2 over x. If the perinumeral is at the bottom, what do we do? Good. Okay, so we end up switching the x with the tan 18. And so we go x equals 2 divided by tan 18. And we get our answer, which is 6.60, 16. Okay, meters. And so you'd then write Chelsea is 6.16 meters from the tree. Does that seem right? If you think about 18 degrees and then you go the opposite, that's 72, you've got the 2 meters is going to be a lot smaller compared to the 72 degrees. It's going to be bigger. So that seems to me to be about right. It's triple the size. If you think about the angles, it's more than that. So that's about seems right to me. Okay, questions. These questions get hard pretty quickly. Okay, so I'm going to give you, these are the easy ones. So I'm going to give you some easy ones to start with, and then you need to get to the harder ones. Okay, and we'll practice these. Actually, I think we might do bearings next week. We'll practice these today and tomorrow. Make sure everyone's on track, okay? They're not hard processes, it's just drawing the pictures, okay? So I'm going to give you some questions from both 10A and 10B. The 10A questions are angle of elevation, 10B questions are angle of elevation and angle of depression, and the 10A ones are the harder ones as we go. So we will work through some of these tomorrow as well. Exercise 10B, let's try questions 2 to 6 in exercise 10B and exercise 10A. So I want you to do them first. Exercise 10A, it actually goes to 46. They're pretty hard though. Pretty much from wherever you're at. So from 28, all of you should have done to 27 already. From question 28 to, as I said, we've got 2 lessons in the weekend, to 45. We won't do 46. Pardon? Yes. Thursday, week 4. Yep. Yep. All right, so I just want you to try and get through as much as you can in today's lesson. Wait a second.